Yes, Alasdair Ross, you just presented that the economy in the world looks quite good at the moment, but you also have the background with all the things that's going on in Syria and Brexit and Trump and North Korea. And is there a greater tolerance today for things like that, because the economy and people seem to want to do business anyway?
Yeah, it's extremely complex. I mean, it's interesting that one of the reasons why the economy is doing quite well, if you just look at a run of the last 2 or 3 years and you look out 2 or 3 years ahead, is because, of course, we're recovering from the worst, conflagration that there's been in the global economy for many, many decades. So, we can't. It would be wrong for us to be complacent and to imagine that everything's just smooth in the global economy. And we are in a recovery mode. We're in quite a delicate recovery mode. A lot of the issues that created the problem, the financial crisis that we went through, are still unresolved, and so they all still float around as significant risks that we need to confront. So if you take this 4-year period, 2 years back, 2 years forward, in isolation, the economics do look smooth and they look fine and we're doing okay. But of course you have to look at it in the longer run. And as you've said, there are many things going on around the economy, in politics, in regional contestations of power, that are complicating things. And many of these are going to have an impact one way or another on the global economy. The trade war between the US and China is going to have an impact on both of those countries, and to a degree through them on the rest of the world. And of course it's possible that it could blow up and become something much bigger. And the other kinds of problems that you've raised, talking about the Middle East, talking about Brexit, these are all a little bit more localized, but they all have the potential to spark issues and risks and threats to the global economy bigger than we're anticipating or expecting. So it's a good question about whether we're more tolerant. I think to some extent we're perhaps just a bit punch drunk. So we've taken so many blows over the last decade or two that we almost expect to get up in the morning and see something dramatic on the news, and we've just become inured and used to it. That's not to say that those risks don't seriously exist and couldn't impact us in the coming years.
Yeah, and one of those, of course, the growing trade war between the US and China. You mentioned two stubborn people on each side, and there can be only one. What can we expect from this going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think the point is really that we're measuring this trade war in conventional terms. Both sides have aims that they want to achieve, particularly Donald Trump and his administration in the United States. And when you look at a competition or a confrontation in rational terms, you can see the scenarios that could play out. So Donald Trump wants to reduce the trade deficit with China. He also wants to undercut China's ability to threaten the United States as the global economic leader. These are his aims. But what happens when you can't achieve those aims? So we have a rational scenario where the tariffs sort of ramp up. There's some kind of resolution to it, and everything fades away, and we come back to normal with some kind of new trading structure. What happens if Donald Trump doesn't get what he wants in this competition? What happens if he's constrained by his own electorate or by his own party and sort of falls short of the measures that he wants to take? The point I was making in the room is that both Donald Trump and Xi Jinping are these aren't individuals who want to back down. So that psychologically they don't have the makeup of people who say, well, okay, you're not letting me do what I want to do, so I just won't do it. Particularly Donald Trump, I think, can be extremely unpredictable, and we could see things escalate. We could see responses and reactions that we don't expect, that we don't anticipate at the moment. So we have to be ready for that, and we can't just be complacent and imagine that this trade war will play out on rational terms.
There's some risks ahead, but you also mentioned that people still need to trade, and you can see new trade alliances form over Europe. Of course, Brexit is another part of that. How do you see that landscape shift?
I think, in short, we're going to see the United States taking a back seat in the rearrangement of global trading patterns. I think we see with the CPTPP, which is this sort of this successor to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, Japan is very much pushing. I think we see a new sort of shape of global trade without America calling all of the shots. I think we're seeing more, if anything, an increasing interest in regional trade pacts and bilateral trade pacts than there was before. In many ways, Trump's trade war has sort of kicked things off again in terms of negotiations between regions, between countries. So I think Japan's taking an important lead in that. Europe still has a lot to say about it. As Britain departs from Europe and begins to embark on new trade relationships elsewhere, that will be another dynamic in the global trade picture. And America, of course, will come back into the picture, but that's going to take a little bit longer.